You look good. All right, come on. We're ready. We're ready.
Fantastic. I love this.
All right.
Pedicab too.
Welcome to episode 115 of Convos on the Pedicab. We're here with the Travis County GOP Communications Director, Andy Hogue. Before we get started, we got to give a big shout out to Texas Lake Girl. She's one of our she's the only VIP patron that I got right now. So you get a shout out. Thanks for joining. Thanks for supporting me. So hopefully we get more people, more shout outs. You know, there's a lot of perks that come with this. So anyway, Andy,
Thanks,
happy to have you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, good to be here.
A lot to talk about.
Where do we start?
Well, we were talking for a minute about a lot of stuff that was happening while we were getting set up.
Yeah, we done missed a good part of the show.
I know, right? So you're the communications director for the
Yes.
Travis County Republican Party. How long have you been doing that for?
Oh, let's see, about 2013. Okay, a little close.
Yeah.
Eat like ice cream. Yeah,
Yeah.
2013 thereabouts.
Okay.
Yeah, it was right after I worked for a operation called Lone Star Report. We covered legislative issues, and I covered mostly transportation and health care and the occasional primary race. And we ran out of business, and fortunately TCRP was right across the hallway, and I walked over and became the primary administrator, one of them anyway.
Is it a paid position or it's
It's very part-time, sometimes volunteer. Depends on how much money we got in the bank. But
Gotcha,
I do
okay.
that in addition to other things, so I stay busy.
How do you feel about the direction that the Republican Party is heading?
Well, I think we're in a kind of a holding pattern, honestly. We had a lot of tumult, I think, when you go back to about the Obama era. Alex and I were talking earlier about just how, man, it seems like every once in a while you just got to exhale. You got to breathe in some new breath. And we got that with the Ron Paul movement and some other new elements to the party. And so what we ended up with was a new focus on civil rights, on individual liberties, and that changed things a lot for us. So where I think we are right now, we're kind of just we're stuck with a pretty good collection of people. A majority of Texans still vote for Republicans statewide, obviously. So we're in a good spot. We have a majority of state legislative seats across the country. I think it's over 55% right now. I need to check the most recent stats on that. But it seems like we're in a good place, but not necessarily where we need to be to, I guess, give the death throw on the Democrats.
Well, it's not enough for a supermajority, is it?
No, not nearly enough. And I think we need to make better conservative reasons for the issues that Americans face or feel that they're facing. We have to really show that conservatives have a viable alternative. And right now, I think most voters consider themselves moderates. To me, that's a synonym for I'm not really sure. I don't want to be one extreme or the other. I just want to do what makes sense.
I think that, but I think that's how politics should be.
Yeah, I think so. I think most voters are. Most voters are what we call swing voters. You can argue night and day whether or not swing voters actually exist, but I think statistically it proves most voters are independent. They're not married to one party or the other. They'll vote for Obama, they'll vote for Bush, and they'll turn around and vote for Trump. You just
Well,
never
a lot
know.
of a lot of Obama voters did vote for Trump, and that's why Trump won.
Indeed.
That did happen, and a lot of Bush voters voted for Obama.
Right.
So I think we have a country filled with swing voters. I think that if you're going to be successful politically, you have to communicate in a way that presents value.
Yeah.
Because politics are not a sport. I think there are a lot of people in the consultant class and people who spend too much time on Twitter or people who are pundits, right, that think politics are like an us versus them. It's the right versus the left. It's us versus the Democrats. And when you look at how Democrats have been governing with lockdowns, with supporting censorship, with trying to treat people like they are second-class citizens because they don't want to take a shot that doesn't even really do what it's supposed to do to stop a virus, and it seems as though you're implementing these like Chinese social credit type systems based on how you're governing.
Yeah, go on.
Well, it seems like you have almost no choice but to vote for the Republicans. But in turn, if you're going to be a Republican operative or communications director or anybody with influential leadership in that party, you have to run on a platform where you convey the values of ensuring that people are going to have their freedoms protected at all costs. And the fact that you didn't get a full-blown red tsunami means that the Republican Party failed in doing that.
Well, I would say that's true. A lot of voters still aren't sure. I mean, are we absolutely sure what the coronavirus consists of? Was it made in the lab? Is it going to continue to develop and take on different forms and perhaps more deadly forms than the first strain?
Well, yeah.
There's a lot we don't know, so a lot of voters vote accordingly. We're not sure about Chinese credit at all. Nobody's an expert in that because it's a brand new frontier. So the average voter, do they know? Do they watch the news 24/7? Do they have an IV tube of talking points. They usually don't. Most voters are busy working, raising
their
families.
All right, but you're seeing videos coming out of China right now
right.
of these anti-lockdown protesters getting and you see the formations of a new Tiananmen Square where the military is going to like physically just start cracking down on anti-lockdown protesters. You saw how Canadian truckers were treated. And then you find out this weekend that Joe Biden called up Justin Trudeau and pretty much ordered Justin Trudeau to stomp out the trucker protests.
Right.
Okay? That is something that like an actual authoritarian fascist would do.
It is fascism, let's be honest.
Well, it is fascism.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the problem, though. Only a really small segment of the population even knows that happened. But the entire population knows about abortion.
That's true.
And how do you think that's going to affect the voting demographics?
I think that affected us a lot this election, especially in urban areas. We had a situation in which Roe versus Wade was overturned, most of it. And now we're in a situation where we have been taken from the defenders of life to the aggressors against women's liberty. And that's the perspective a lot of voters have. Again, not really knowing the ins and outs of Doe v. Bolton or Roe v. Wade, but knowing just they don't want to be on the side of the aggressor. They want to be the good guy. So they look at what happened and they go, well, that's just way too much power. I might be pro-life, but I agree women should have the choice. And they wouldn't have said that before Roe v. Wade was overturned. It's just a matter of positioning. And positioning is really 90% of politics. If you can position yourself on the side of liberty and the little guy, most people will vote for you not really knowing anything about the issue at hand.
Do you think overturning Roe was a good idea?
Yes, I do. I think we're the pro-life generation, and it'll be the new abolition by the time I'm an old man.
I
might be right now.
Well, I'm gonna disagree with you, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay, go ahead.
And I've gotten a lot of shit for.
And I understand. I understand you got a pro-choice streak to you, right?
Somewhat,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
Like I think that you have to protect life. That's important.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. You should never
and you yourself would not favor an abortion if it was your child, right?
Absolutely not. No,
okay,
I wouldn't want to do that. I think a lot of people that get abortions feel really bad about it. I think that a lot of people who get these procedures don't know what an abortion looks like. I think that it's a lot cheaper to have an abortion than it is to have a child and give birth. I think there are a lot of these other factors that should be addressed before you start banning things.
Yeah.
And I also think that there's a point in like a woman's pregnancy where throughout that pregnancy it goes from being a clump of cells to human life, and everybody has a different agreement about where that point is.
Right.
And there's got to be
Exactly.
some kind of consensus, not universal, but like a majority-based consensus on what that point is.
Exactly.
Whether it's like from immediate conception or 40 days or 60 days or or the first trimester. I personally think that, anything after the first trimester is probably something that you shouldn't do. I think that like when it comes to this procedure, you should be taking the advice of a doctor as in conjunction with like 3 spiritual leaders from like a church or a synagogue, and then you make the decision based on what based on a majority opinion or a collection of opinions from a medical professional as well as 2 spiritual leaders. I think that a doctor should have the choice to not want to perform an abortion if they don't want to, universally. If it goes against your code of ethics, you shouldn't have to do that. I think that you should be paying people or financially incentivizing people to have children, considering we're at a population crisis, and they're doing that in Hungary, and they're giving people like full-blown massive tax breaks if you have more than 4 kids in Hungary. I think we should be doing stuff like that.
Okay.
I think that's a better long-term approach towards preserving life. I think like maybe in middle school you show like a middle school classroom what an abortion looks like, so that this way, you make a better you look at that and you say, man, I don't want to go through that. I got to be more selective. I can't just go sleep around with everybody and know that this is a viable alternative because I'm going to feel terrible. You should have people who've gone through these procedures and let their voices be amplified so that people can talk about how they felt afterwards, so that less people voluntarily do that. I think that's a better approach. And I also think that here's the big reason, right? I think that a lot of the states that had the trigger bans, that offered these trigger laws in which abortion got banned, they already had really strict abortion laws anyway. Like Texas has a 6-week law regardless, right? Most people don't even know they're pregnant until 6 weeks, at least.
Yeah.
Until you miss like 2 periods. So Texas already pretty much effectively banned abortion to begin with. A lot of these states already had such
right.
strict laws where it was already effectively
banned.
And
that's the untold story. What will this actually accomplish? There's still a battle.
Yes.
State, yeah.
Well, what
it
happened?
Takes the battle to our state capitals.
So then, what happened is Massachusetts went full blue.
Correct.
Right. Pennsylvania has I don't know if they have a blue governor, won overwhelmingly. They may even have a blue majority in legislative offices. I think Michigan or Wisconsin has like a majority now in the state legislative office. Wisconsin would have had a red governor if it wasn't for this.
Right.
I think Michigan now is like a blue supermajority as a result of this.
I think you're correct. Yeah.
And so, what happens now that these states went blue when they otherwise would not have? What do you think that does for life?
Yeah, I don't think it actually helps. But again, it may help in certain states. It may help in Texas. It may not help in Delaware, for instance.
But does it help? But it didn't help in Texas because we already have a 6-week ban regardless.
Yeah, I think it might actually. It might create a situation where the abortion industry, by and large, goes belly up and has to beg for money like our schools have to have bake sales, right? It may be a situation where Planned Parenthood is no longer a viable recruitment pitch for abortions. So I think in that case, it could absolutely reduce the number of abortions that take place in Texas. Some say it may cause people to leave the state lines and go to a different state to get an abortion. I won't argue that. But one way or the other, if it saves lives, which I believe a fetus, and we can argue about conception or quickening as the medieval understanding, whenever life begins, if it saves actual human lives that are preborn, then to me it's a net positive.
Sure,
but you're asking about the electoral consequences and does it actually further the pro-life movement? I guess we really can't answer that yet. We have to see the results.
But are you saving lives though? If now Michigan is going to allow late-term abortions because of how their demographic shifted in a legislative session, are you actually saving more lives? Is the question.
That's the big question to ask, and we'll have to keep a careful eye on the stats and see what works. And I almost wish the timing on the Roe v. Wade overturn was different. But that says one good thing about the Supreme Court is that they're not answering to the Republican Party. The GOP would have said wait until after the election, but the Supreme Court acted independently.
Or it was done on purpose because they don't want a super red majority.
That could be too, but I don't know.
I mean, there is a possibility.
Can't really tell that,
something like that could just get done on purpose because a super red majority means we're not sending all these tax dollars to Ukraine anymore. Yeah. A super red majority means no more vaccine mandates, and a lot of these people own stocks in Pfizer and Moderna and these big pharma companies. A super red majority means no central bank digital currencies. It means 87,000 IRS agents are not going to be there making sure that you're being robbed at gunpoint to give your money to the Ukraine to these corrupt entities
some big
overseas.
Fish to fry, in other words. Yes.
Yeah, this could very easily be something that was done to continue the uniparty's ascent to power. And then if you're a Democrat, this is such a good fundraising tool.
Yeah. I think you might be right. It certainly was for Texas Democrats. They had a field day with it. But again, it's all about positioning, as we said earlier. We really haven't had the time to position ourselves as the fact is Roe versus Wade was a judicial mistake. It was judicial activism. It should have never gone to the Supreme Court. That was a mistake from the very beginning. And I knew Norma McCorvey, Jane Roe personally, by the way. She was from the Fort Worth area. And I had the pleasure of knowing her personally and had a MySpace and Facebook friendship with her in her later days.
Wow.
And she admitted, this was a mistake on so many levels. And so it's a matter
what
of...
did she... hold on. What did she exactly say? Because I know that there were some questionable methods for how that even became a law. Yeah.
Well, of course, Roe v. Wade was an example of judicial overreach, and I think we can both agree on that. But what specifically do you mean?
Well, I mean, I think that they said that she had gotten assaulted, but it turns out that she wasn't assaulted or something like that. There was a lot of misinfo that was used for the Supreme Court justices, who were all men at the time too, to make this decision.
I believe there was a lot of misrepresentation in her case, a lot of things she repented for after she became a Christian. And it's all in her biography. And I'll have to
but what happened? Because this is just interesting footage in general. To put on the Instagram or Twitter, this just seems like this would be a good clip to put on.
Yeah,
so.
It certainly would be. I have to defer.
You have to just ask and figure it out.
Got to do my homework on that. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, but I will say, there was a definitive change in that woman, And if Roe v. Wade was a mistake, then we need to position it as a mistake. Not that this is a assault on women's rights, but who's better at messaging, Republicans or Democrats? Democrats, by and large. Yeah, it's just they own the entertainment media, they own the news media. They have more of a creative acclicity, which explains some of the utopian politics they favor.
So
it's all science
fiction.
fiction.
Why do you think that is?
So I think, like I said, they have more of an abstract way of thinking, which does not benefit them politically. They adopt unrealistic policy goals for that reason. They adopt political goals that don't match reality. And when you think about it that way, that makes them better at casting a message, casting out a vision, but maybe not actually governing. Republicans tend to be better at the nuts and bolts pragmatism, but we're not as good at casting the vision. We're just like, okay.
So how do we fix that?
I think it's going to take a paradigm shift. I think we're going to need to present a Republican Party that does cast a better vision, that does show, like you were saying, there's a lot at stake here. We're talking about digital currency, a social credit score that China's rolling out. I mean, that could be
they've already rolled that out.
Yeah, they have.
That's already been rolled out. If you protest against the government, the QR code on your phone turns yellow. You're not allowed to be in an apartment, and it potentially could even turn red. And they're building quarantine camps that hold hundreds of thousands of people all throughout China, and those camps are not about COVID.
Well, you know more about it than I do then.
Yeah,
well, it's sad. Again, information overload I think is a problem too. How do we cut through just the massive amounts of information out there and let Americans know what's truly important? Politics is all about priorities, and you can talk to certain demographics even within the Republican Party, and certain issues rise to the top, certain issues aren't as important.
Well, these are human rights issues. When
they should be important. They should be very top, yes.
When you see China mobilizing their entire military to crush anti-lockdown protesters. And by the way, people are being bolted into their homes during fires, okay? Like to have a zero COVID policy in China. When you see someone like Justin Trudeau freezing bank accounts of people that were truckers or people that supported the Canadian truckers. When you see how the police brutalized these protesters, there was literal live stream footage of this. Why aren't you sending messages or communicating with members of the DSA or far-left anti-police groups to condemn this?
Yeah. Well, I think you got to be careful when you say they. Who is they? Are we talking about the RNC? Are we talking about the Republican House Committee?
Well,
Are we talking about Prager University?
Well, okay.
Some entities
Andy.
are doing quite well at communicating.
Okay.
And another problem is sometimes we're repressed. I've noticed a significant decrease in our Facebook traffic with Travis GOP ever since Trump derangement syndrome started. And fortunately, I was around for before Trump and after Trump, and I saw a big difference in how our social media posts were reacted to. Our numbers went way down.
Okay.
And I'm not saying there was a conspiracy where somebody went ahead and said, here's the Travis GOP, we're going to push the button and push them into security. I think, but the algorithm shifted to where it no longer favored our points.
Yeah, well, Mark Zuckerberg has said that on Rogan, that's actually happening.
Yes, and I believe Elon Musk is going to release a lot about what happened with Apple and with Twitter. We're going to hear a lot more. There will be a reckoning soon, I believe. But in the meantime, we're dealing with a situation where there's some good stuff out there. Watch Prager University's videos. They explain our basic underlying economic philosophy quite well, but is it getting out to the people that need to hear it? Probably not. Maybe because of repression in the overall marketplace of ideals. I think we're making progress in that regard. Elon buying Twitter was a master stroke, and I hope that will continue. I hope he continues to free things up and let people back on Twitter.
So here's the thing, though. Okay. I showed you about the EU trying to ban Twitter from its existence.
Yes.
There's going to be a pushback from these centralized bureaucratic entities to stop an actual free and open exchange of ideas.
Of course.
Without a free and open exchange of ideas, that's how you create fascism. That's how you create communism. This is how you create authoritarianism on a digital scale. Authoritarianism on a digital scale is a lot scarier, and it's going to be a lot more effective than authoritarianism pre-internet.
Okay. Because there wasn't any global network by which to repress an entire platform. Yeah.
So like you could, let's say you live in Germany and Adolf Hitler's, governing you. Okay.
Sure.
If you're not a Jew and you live somewhere in the middle of the country, it doesn't matter if Adolf Hitler is governing you.
Right. You're removed from it. There's nothing to connect
you're removed from it.
You may have a telegraph line if you're lucky.
You're removed from it. Like this doesn't affect you.
1938,
even in
1940,
Russia with Vladimir Putin.
Okay.
The peasants in Russia don't hate Vladimir Putin.
Right.
You want to know why?
Probably because he represents strength and represents.
No, because he leaves them alone.
Oh,
because
okay. Yes.
It's because they don't have any technology. They don't have anything there. Like they're poor. they're poor. They are in these like economically depressed conditions, but food is cheap. They can grow their food. They can live their lives that are basically set back 150 years or 100 years into the past.
That's right.
And Vladimir Putin has no effect. What Vladimir Putin does has almost no effect on what a peasant in Russia his day-to-day life is going to be.
That's very true. You know, I grew up in a rural area myself. My graduating class was 23, and I brag about being 11th in my class, by the way.
Okay, all right, that's pretty funny, yeah.
I didn't really care too much about academics back then, but
yeah.
I will say that, yeah, that's an absolute major driver to rural politics. I'm going to leave you alone. Who's going to leave me alone the best? That's absolutely a major issue, and that's forgotten about. Grover Norquist once wrote a pretty good book, he's a tax advocate, and it was called Leave Us Alone. And he goes into that concept fairly well, that America was founded on a government not being weak per se. I mean, look at the difference between the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation. Some of the same patriots from 1776 favored a stronger Constitution for that reason. But they wanted government to, again, let us handle our own affairs. And the government that governs least governs best. That's an American philosophy, and one I think we've forgotten about because we've become so dependent on things. Well over 50% of Americans now are on some form of federal subsidy. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Not counting state and local subsidies. Not counting Austin's, god-awful UBI program coming up.
Well, it's also because we have a financial system that is based on devaluing currency that's not based on anything sound or tangible.
There's the issue of fiat currency, correct? But I also think it's a matter of a learned dependency. Like I said about the internet, there was nothing for a fascist to really take over on a wide basis until we had telecommunications. Now there's a way to oppress a mass number of people. When before you can only oppress people in a city or perhaps a governing region, now we can literally affect the lives of almost everybody on planet Earth. That hasn't happened before in human history.
It has not happened before in human history.
Right. That's one thing, especially you read about in the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, you see a lot of prophecies about every eye seeing, every eye hearing. Scripture says every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. How could that happen just 100 years ago? It couldn't have. Now it can.
Well, it does involuntarily. You can't buy or sell without your number.
That's right. There's
that
too.
Show me your QR code with your vaccine passport to go into the store.
Yeah.
Show me your central bank digital currency that's the only thing that we're going to accept in certain areas.
And we do it to ourselves. I mean, I'm in favor of voter ID, okay? It's a big issue for me. But ID for everything. Everywhere we go, we got to see your license. Pushing for real ID standards in our driver's license. ID this, ID that. I hate calling my driver's license an ID. It just pushes that idea that I'm no longer a person. I'm a collection of numerals. I am a set of variables. And that's not the sovereignty our founding fathers had in mind.
It's not. I think that based on what we're talking about, though, there needs to be a viable parallel economy.
Yes.
And there's got to be a better way of communication. So we were talking earlier before we went on a big long tangent about
tangents are great, Alex.
It was a great time. It was great.
That's why I'm here.
What we were talking about was authoritarian crackdowns of anti-lockdown protesters in China and anti-mandate protesters in Canada and all that stuff, right?
Yes.
And a lot of the defund the police DSA activists were strangely quiet when that was happening. Why are they so quiet? Why aren't people like you messaging some of the heads of these organizations or some of the communicators to say, hey, are you willing to condemn this? Why aren't you going on Twitter and aggressively asking them, hey, can you please condemn this police violence that's occurring? If they don't condemn this, you could say, hey, look, these guys obviously don't care about police violence that's occurring in this part of the world. You have Democratic operatives talking about how everything is a threat to democracy. Well, silencing free speech, forcing people to take a medication in order to participate in society, trying to push a central bank digital currency that is completely controlled by centralized entities is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that these guys are spouting about. Why aren't we calling them a threat to democracy?
That's a very good point. I think that we should. And matter of fact, I try to. Me personally, I'm a cash guy. I like to use cash wherever I can, and I think you want me to get more involved with Bitcoin. I think I will. I think it's a good way to get past the inevitable centralization.
Have you paid attention to the legislative recommendations that were put forth regarding Bitcoin and blockchain.
I have seen some, and it disturbs me the government wants to get involved. It's like when
no, these recommendations for Texas look pretty good, actually.
Okay, they're okay. Which ones in specific are we speaking of?
I'm gonna send them to you, but basically there was this guy Tan Parker.
Yes, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
And I don't know too much about him. I heard like some stuff about him being like a rhino and XYZ. But this stuff, this work group about Bitcoin seems like they have some stuff right, and it's about like. We want to create legislation to ensure people have self-custody of their finances. We want to ensure that people are free to transact without burdensome KYC regulations. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that it seems in this legislation in which they want to do. They want to facilitate more companies that value free speech and actual free market principles to come and thrive in Austin or thrive in Texas. Like that stuff seems like it's a good piece of legislation. I'm going to read more about it and write more notes, and I'll send it to you. Mm-hmm. I'll send you the legislation. I'll send you the notes I have in it when I finish it.
Yeah.
But there is like some pretty good legislative priorities for adopting Bitcoin in Texas. And one of the other things is banning central bank digital currencies was something that was brought about in a Texas brought about as a Texas legislative priority.
Right.
And I think that banning CBDCs and doing so preemptively, while also making so that we have the framework to have a Bitcoin-based economy in that event, and you do it in a way in which you enable KYC-free transactions.
Okay.
That's how you promote free. Like this is how Texas becomes a leader in promoting freedom.
Yeah. And I will say Tan's pretty conservative. I'm from the Denton area, so I knew plenty of his early campaign supporters. He may play the game a little differently than the conservative movement as a whole, but he's certainly got some conservative chops, and I give him a lot of credit for that. But will some of those bills move? You got to look at the history of the Texas legislature and how it's set up. And the way it's set up currently was back after Reconstruction, there was a knee-jerk reaction, for better or worse, against the overreach of the radical Republican regime that came to Texas. Okay. And I say that carefully because I'm representing the Republican part of the party.
The Republican Party was different back then too.
Very different. Yeah. But the Southern Democrats rebelled by creating a system in the Texas Capitol that made it very difficult to pass a law. So everything is a check and balance. The lieutenant governor has more power than a fresh governor in Texas. It takes a while for the governor to build up the appointments and the clout to where he has equal power to the lieutenant governor. There's a calendars committee in the House that can kill bills dead. Lieutenant governor can just squash a bill to death. There's a lot of ways to kill a bill, thousands of ways to kill a bill in the Texas legislature. Like there's a million ways to die in the West, right? But I also think that getting the favor of the speaker, lieutenant governor, and the governor is key to something like that. You want to be on their radar. And going against that a set of priorities is fairly difficult. You have to have a very strong, almost a widespread support in the House and Senate to even get close to that, even to go around the calendars committee, to go around the House or Senate leadership. A very difficult game to play, but it can be done, but it's very difficult. So earning the favor of the big three, I think, is very important on that. And is it a priority to the governor right now? I just don't think it is.
Well, it seems as though he wants to learn more about Bitcoin. I've seen him give speeches and talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
He's receptive. He needs to be. He needs to have the right people in his ears that have been around Bitcoin for like the past 8 years or so. Like people that are a lot more knowledgeable and experienced about this than I am. Like I know nothing compared to these people. Like you need people from like Unchained Capital or companies like that or Riot Blockchain to like actually advise the governor on a very step-by-step basis, so he does what is actually good for freedom and privacy.
Yeah.
Instead of being like easily manipulated by like a VC or a Sam Bankman-Fried type of person, who could kind of do something, con someone like Abbott into just making money for himself and making the industry look bad.
That's true.
So,
well, the one good thing about Governor Abbott is he is a good listener. I mean, he was Attorney General for a long time. He knows how to listen to people, and he's also no fool. When he wants something done, he doesn't tell you how to do it step by step. He just says, get it done. He's very objective in his approach, and I respect that about the governor. Yeah.
How do you feel about the speaker?
The speaker, I haven't known him too well, but being a former staffer, he understands a lot about how to build support for a bill or even deconstruct a bill.
But he also
he's a genius in a way, and I'm kind of glad to see somebody that has worked in the trenches that's now Speaker of the House.
You like Phelan? Or are you saying that because you're the communications director and you don't want to and this is going to go on the internet and you?
Oh, you're going to get me in the corner here, Alex.
Yeah,
There's a lot to like about Dade Phelan. Okay, a lot to like about him, and things have changed a lot. We've seen a general improvement since the days of Pete Laney, and even Pete Laney had his good spots too. But we've gotten better under each speaker. There have been problems with each one, of course. I don't like the slow walking of legislation. I think that needs to change pronto.
I also think that he's appointing Democrats to legislative committees.
Well, that's been going on forever. Now,
yeah, but considering what the Democratic Party has become, they are becoming the party of actual digital Nazis right now.
Yes, our platform does call loudly for taking Democrats out of committee chairmanship. Now, would they give us, say the Democrats take back over by some miracle?
Well, they're going to take back government if we don't actually do anything to, if we don't actually preserve the values of freedom and liberty and do it aggressively, they will take this back, and they're not going to extend you any courtesy no matter what you do.
I think you're right. Now, I do think we need to be the better people and maybe consider a few good Democrats.
No.
Like, for instance, remember, he's no longer a senator anymore, but we had from Laredo, Eddie Lucio Jr.
Okay.
He was a great, I would say he was a great Republican in terms of the way he voted, He was to the right of many of Republicans on the, I think it was SMU's list of left to right. But when you look at it, he made a good vice chairman. He made a good chairman of certain committees, a good appointment. But there's a winnowing number of these common sense Democrats.
There are no good Democrats anymore. That party has been completely hijacked by globalist entities, by large mega corporations, the World Economic Forum, China, and every single collaborative entity that wants to concentrate wealth and power in a way that only they have this power and wealth. They're using identity politics and social justice to manufacture consent for an agenda that only benefits an extremely small number of people and offers them absolute control and absolute power. It is dangerous.
That's right. They lick their fingers see where the wind's blowing and go with it.
You need to recognize that danger and address it before it's too late. If these people start becoming, if you have these people on chairs of committees, we don't get Bitcoin adoption. You get the CBDC later. Nobody's banning the vaccine mandates. Nobody's holding the DAs like Jose Garza accountable. When literally, there was a pedicab I work with. He got shot at like a month ago by some kids for no reason. A bullet hole pierced his cab. Right? You have this stuff is happening because of the policies that cities like Austin are adopting.
That's true. That's true.
If this doesn't get fixed right now, there is no more Texas. Texas does go blue.
Now that's something I think you get the big
and then if Texas goes blue, we turn into the EU. We turn into China. We turn into that. This is like imperative that you don't have Democrat chairs on any bodies, at least for this session.
So while we're
maybe
on that,
the next,
where
you
are
change
we,
it eventually. But for right now, you got to do something. Otherwise, we don't have a country. We don't have sovereignty.
True. Where are we on turning Austin into a DC-like district?
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. Ups and downs of that, I'm sure. I mean, I kind of see a little bit of a difference. Like when you're parking around the Capitol, and you know that driving a pedicab, you can see where the parking gets a lot easier when you get away from the city of Austin streets and get near the Capitol streets. You have the old coin-based meters. It's a lot easier to park, less just draconian enforcement of things. It seems like a night and day. I'd rather take a DPS meter over a city of Austin meter any day. You can just see that automatically. I think if there's ever gun violence at the Capitol, you want the cowboy hats on your side and not the Austin PD. Although I think they cooperate well together from everything I've seen. But UT police students, forget about them either. But I do think that DPS would be an excellent law enforcement unit. I don't know how the politics would work out in a district of Austin or a Waterloo district, whatever we call it, the Texas Administrative Zone, whatever it becomes. I don't know. A lot of question marks there. I guess it all depends on how the proposal is rolled out and what checks and balances there are.
Sure, but I think a new speaker like a Tony Tinderholt seems like it seems like it might be a good welcome change considering what's happening. It feels like Phelan's like a peacetime leader, and you need somebody who's going to lead things a little differently considering where our country is right now.
Now that's the biggest argument I've heard so far. A wartime leader, a Winston Churchill, not so much a who was that guy before, Niles or
Neville Chamberlain?
Neville Chamberlain. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here. It's a little cold today.
It's a little cold, yeah. We got to deal with it. We're in the elements, man. This is our life.
I love Texas, don't you?
Yeah. One day it's hot, next day it's cold. Like you don't like the weather, you change it. It changes in like an hour.
That's right.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's my thing on it. I think that you need new leadership. And when I noticed, I went to that meeting, and a lot of people in the meeting wanted new leadership.
Yes.
And then Matt shut it down.
Rinaldi?
No, Matt McHogue shut it down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I think we wanted to have that argument after the election. We didn't want anything distracting from the messaging that our candidates. We had a lot of hard-working campaigns this cycle. We didn't do so well, but we had some really hard-working campaigns, some of the hardest-working, best-organized campaigns I've seen in Travis County in a very long time.
Why do you think they didn't do well?
We're still kind of wrapping our heads around that. It could have been anything from voter turnout. It could have been Roe v. Wade could have been a factor. It could have been that conservative independent voters, swing voters, just saw the red wave written on the wall and didn't turn out.
Well, you also have guys like Beto.
You got the Beto factor is worth
considering. The Beto effect, and this is the reason why people like Beto run. Because Beto is never going to be governor. Beto knew that. The reason that they gave Beto money.
Thank you.
The reason that they gave someone like that money is so that the elections in big cities go heavily blue.
He wasn't running to win. He was running to keep the Democratic Party warm. He was their sacrificial lamb. He was the lightning rod. Just kind of like how, who was it before? It was Beto one time before. It was, I believe they wanted Andrew White to be the gubernatorial nominee and for him to be the lightning rod before. But when he didn't win and it was Lupe Valdez, they went after, who was it? Well, Beto. Beto became the lightning rod, right? And
he was as a Senate candidate.
And
then look at what happened to Austin. Every time Beto has run, Austin has gotten progressively more communist.
That's right. Yes, every time. So I think with that being said, there's a different game at play. The TDP knows they don't have the Texas Democratic Party. They don't have the center of Texas political beliefs. They know they're on the outside. Kind of like we at TCRP know. We don't have the hearts and minds of every Travis County voter. This is a left of center community.
Okay.
So the question is, what are we doing? Well, we're not just keeping our seat warm, but we're winning where we can. The Democrats aren't exactly just giving up. I think they did back in 2004 when we had this weird little B team. You can look that up. It's a strange moment in history for them. But they're running good candidates. But at the same time, with Beto O'Rourke, no, he wasn't running to win. He was running to raise money. He was running to funnel resources into urban areas and growing what they call urban suburbs where the Democrats can win. And so it was a lightning rod to attract interest into these races where they can win. That's what we got to do in TCRP. Find out where we can win and run coordinated campaigns that help
somebody like Michelle Evans was a victim of the Beto effect.
I would say so, yeah. But on the other hand, what was happening on the other side of Michelle Evans? We had Caroline Harris, right? Now, either her or Patrick McGinnis would have made a great House member.
But Caroline Harris was also in a district that was a red district.
Correct, but it was drawn red. Busey's district was drawn more blue.
Yeah.
So, but again, you had that effect happening where the Republicans have had enough, and they were throwing out, James Tallarico hightailed it to Austin. That's what he did, And there's a question, by the way, whether or not he actually moved to Austin. I can discuss that later. But
there's also, did you see the video? There's a John Busey video at a campaign event. He's basically openly admitting to wanting to censor the internet, like on a hidden camera.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
I'll show it to you.
Okay.
I'll show you that whole video. But that guy is like in charge of like blockchain and in charge of like passing and promoting big tech legislation. You're gonna put that guy in if you put that guy still on a chair after you're openly admitting to that, we're not a serious state and we're not being governed by serious people.
No, not at all. He's
and if Phelan's willing to do that, if Phelan is willing to do that, then why should you be the speaker? And look, there's some stuff he did that was good, like constitutional carry was good. We stopped doing vaccine mandates in Austin, right? Like we still kept our freedoms for the most part as a result of everything that's happened. Good on you, but these mandates should have been banned.
Well, you said earlier about
they should have been banned. They were not banned.
You mentioned the uniparty earlier on. I think Democrats that are in this quote-unquote uniparty are more likely to be your Democratic chairman, okay? Those that won't cause much of a ruckus. They won't repeat indivisible or Antifa talking points. Those people that will play along very well. Okay, I don't think Phelan's going to appoint any radical Democrats. I don't think he's going to do that at all.
Every Democrat
John Busey will not be a committee chairman under Dave Phelan. I can probably tell you that right now.
He shouldn't be on any committees.
Yeah.
These people should not be on any committees if this is how you've been governing, right? Like, would you put a former member of like ISIS or Al Qaeda on any kind of a committee?
Absolutely not.
No. And I'm not comparing Democrats to ISIS or Al Qaeda, even though a little bit, right? Yeah. It's just a matter of when you're governing and you're doing things in a way that completely violates like almost every principle of like what this country is supposed to stand for. Maybe you got to take like a time out from being on a board in which you're making decisions for other people. It's not permanent, but you got to be in timeout for a little bit.
But let's get into real politics here for a second, Alex. And about 90% of what you encounter in the legislature is not Washington, D.C. R versus D, China versus U.S. politics. It's a boll weevil eradication. It's stuff about dealing with towing policies. It's pretty boring stuff.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Council meetings all boring stuff. Like 90%. You look at the items, you're like, this is stupid. I don't want to read this.
Yes, you deal with all the minutia, right? So why not have the Democrats pulling their weight? I think everybody that's a member that's not in total trouble with the law ought to be, or doing with the DWI perhaps, everybody that's not in bad trouble ought to be on a committee, okay? But in terms of committee chairmanship, that's a whole different issue. But I have no problem with the Democrats.
So just let them do all the let them do all the grunt work that nobody wants to do.
Sure, there's a lot of minutia to handle. Everybody gets to do the work.
Yeah, but do you trust them to give you the right information based on what they've read?
To a certain extent, I do. To another extent, I don't. I do think when you get right down to it, again, most issues are not, big polarizing issues. Is there a logic problem with most Democrats? Maybe that needs to be considered. It could, disqualify them from committee membership.
There's logic problems with everybody.
I think you're right.
There's logic problems with everybody.
And that's the problem. It's the golden rule.
You're talking about Austin going super blue, okay?
Okay.
Why is Austin going super blue when you had a homeless crisis? Why?
Again, priorities.
Maybe.
Why is it not a priority? Why is it not a priority to the average Austin? The average limousine liberal, why is it not a priority?
Why is it not a priority? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was a priority because they voted overwhelmingly to reinstate the camping ban, so it actually is a priority.
Good point.
Which
election was that? That was a May election.
It was a May election.
Yeah, that makes a difference too. Go ahead. Sorry.
It does.
Yeah. The timing.
Yeah. There's that. There is the fact that you have conservative candidates in Austin that aren't good candidates.
We've had some good ones.
This year you didn't have any. There were no good candidates.
Yes, there was.
There was Clint Rary.
Clinton Rary was good. You mean on the city council?
For city council, yeah.
Richard Smith was good. Maybe
you think so?
Maybe not the strongest performance, but
I don't think he was a good candidate. I think he's a good guy.
Okay.
I think there's just being a good guy and a good person and being a good candidate.
Well, let's just say we had some good candidates, some good guys running. We have Bill Welch was another good guy.
Good guy.
He ran
okay.
a strong campaign. I think it was a very spirited campaign.
But did he? Because I don't know I don't know a single friend of mine who knows who any of these people are.
Okay. Fair enough.
So if people don't know who you are, you didn't run a good campaign because you didn't communicate at scale as to what you didn't get anybody excited about you. The only person who got me excited that I actually liked was Clint Rary.
Clint Rary, okay.
And Clint Rary barely got. How much funding did Clint Rary get?
Not much. I think a couple of thousand, wasn't it?
He knocked on doors and got 10% of the vote in a historically black area in a seat that's reserved for a black candidate.
Yeah.
Right? In a district reserved for that. Running a campaign by himself, knocking on doors by himself, he got 10% of the vote. And
that is depressing when you think, wow, if hypothetically, let's say Clint hit every house and talked to every voter, theoretically, shook every hand, introduced himself. Let's say he did this. Let's say hypothetically he did. Okay. Would he be able to win? Real politics says probably not. And that's the depressing thought, but it's also the reality.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think that he just had no resources, and he got 10%. With $2,000, he got 10% of the vote with $2,000 of his own money, and he knocked on doors by himself. If there was money and resources being helped to actually have a team of people to knock for Clint, and you had a diverse coalition of people, because a lot of black guys like Clint Rary.
Sure, yeah.
You know? A lot of people liked him. He got along. He knew how to talk to and reach out to everybody. Him and his wife.
He's got his urban farm going on. He's not trying to gentrify the community.
Not at all.
He's
speaking the right language.
Yeah, he's not driving a Land Cruiser and walking around in a poodle. He's an actual member of the community.
He's a member. He's an actual member of the community. He diffused mines in Afghanistan.
Exactly.
Right? This is the guy that you want in a position of leadership.
This is a neighbor you want.
This is somebody that you should have been pouring a ton of money into helping.
Why didn't Clint win? Maybe he'll do better in a future campaign. But why didn't he win?
Because there was there was a limited prioritization of resources being used to help him, because you guys thought that he had no chance, so you didn't even try.
Well, now wait a second. Now the TCRP doesn't necessarily get involved until later in the cycle. Remember, it's county and above is what the Republican Party is focused on.
Okay.
If we jump into a city race, it's a rarity. Okay. Now we've been doing it more lately because the Democrats have been more involved.
All right.
But we vote usually later in the cycle, and we did spend some resources on helping them out. Matter of fact, our chairman, of course, he's also involved with Save Austin now.
But didn't you guys help Miss Sayel more than you helped Clint?
Who?
Misael Ramos, the other guy?
Misael Ramos. No, I don't think so.
No? I thought that was like there were flyers being sent out for Misael that were like
from TCRP, if so,
or Republic or Save, like some affiliate. Maybe I'm wrong or something, but that's what I thought.
Save Boston has a separate organization, but
okay.
Often that's having to be done because, frankly, there's only so much we can do. And really, you know, when you talk about nonpartisan races, it gets sticky. There's a lot of issues that aren't necessarily in the spectrum of the Republican platform. There's a lot of things that are just local local pragmatic things we need to address, and so getting involved can be a little tricky when you're dealing with personalities that are well known and family connections, and so we found when we get involved and jump into say an ISD race or a city council race, we often find out that we're choosing between one conservative and another, and that can get a little sticky. So we try not to jump into a situation where there's multiple Republican candidates. So that's one prohibiting factor.
There were Clinton was the only quote unquote Republican candidate in
his district. He would be the absolute unashamed only conservative in that race. Okay,
and he's not
no question about that.
Yes.
So nothing right there. But in terms of why we didn't support him more, I think frankly it's another question of, does Clint want that? Does he want to walk in as the Republican? Because if we're going to make some noise, well, guess what? We got a pretty loud megaphone in this community.
You could also
Clinton
support him.
Oh, look, he's a Republican.
You could also support him on a stealth standpoint.
True.
You could support him by connecting him with resources that can help Clint raise money, and it's independent. You can just say, "Hey, I know this businessman that really likes what you're doing. I know this. I know a collection of small business owners who really like what you're doing.
Yes.
I'm going to put you in contact with them, and they're going to help you raise money."
And you know the secret sauce there. There was a lot of that going on behind the scenes. We could have done more, but again, it was kind of late. We didn't really know Clint until later. I think we can do more, but yes, there was a lot of behind the scenes work and help that we offered his direction. Yeah.
Not too many candidates really spoke out against the mandates, even like before that was going on. That was never really spoken about. I think a lot of people don't, even though Austin is a liberal city, a lot of people who are liberal in Austin did not get that shot.
Nope, not at all.
Right?
Yep.
So like the mandate stuff is what can flip a lot of voters. Being against these lockdowns could flip a lot of voters.
Yes.
That was barely, you didn't have any candidates that really ran against those, that really were vocal. Like, I ran for D2 for a little bit, right? And then I dropped out for, like, Casey Ramos in 2020.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I was like...
Casey was awesome, yeah.
Casey was awesome.
Yeah.
Casey was great. And he agreed with, like, enough of what I was saying that I'm just like, you know what? It'll just help. Let's be a team player, right?
Because that's more pedicab time for you.
Yeah. But I was the only one that was talking. I was the only anti-lockdown candidate that ran that entire race for anything.
Right.
Even Mackenzie Kelly was not anti-lockdown when she ran. She was pro-public safety and against the homeless being able to do whatever they wanted, but she did not speak out against the lockdowns at all.
Well, having been campaign advisor for Mackenzie's campaign, I will say the statistics were very sketchy on that. We thought, and if you look at Don Zimmerman's Texas Senate campaign, he was all about open Texas again, keep Texas open was his slogan, right? But we found out very quickly that a lot of Austinites don't feel that way. That was scary when we looked at it. I'm like, you mean people in this community favor lockdowns? They favor shutting people down? They favor small businesses being eradicated? They favor thread gills being bulldozed? And apparently they do. And let me say this. I mean, look around. We're here. We're on East 4th Street, right?
Yeah, it's also
look at the progress.
Andy, it's also how it's being. It's also
here.
How it's being communicated. You just got you can communicate these issues from the left and get left-wing minded people to like. Be empathetic and sympathetic to you. Someone like Don Zimmerman cannot communicate at all. He's just like, open everything up, you know.
Well,
forget this virus.
Don
like he just will like he will just
yeah.
shout and preach and do stuff, and he turns people off with how he speaks. You could say all this stuff and just not communicate that way. Like Ron DeSantis. So communicates in a much different way than someone like
So you're saying there
could
have been a more nuanced position that Councilmember Kelly could have used in her first campaign.
Well, it doesn't matter. She won, and
she did,
she's doing fine, right?
Yeah.
But
that's
like
you got to find that sweet spot. Now, given District 6 is a more conservative area than say SD 14 was,
and she's doing fine, and she's voted the right way by and large. On
the big issues, yeah, she's been great.
Yeah, she's voted the right way by and large, so she's done fine.
We're proud of her.
I think that my constructive feedback is while you're a sitting city council member and you're the one minority voice, you should be using your voice to kind of like build a broader movement of more people like you to have as allies on this council. And I think she kind of failed at doing that, and now she's going to have a council full of communists and Mackenzie.
She's got a tough road to hoe for sure. I wish we could have given her some help this time, but it just didn't.
Well, you could have. I mean, I was telling her, I'm like, listen, embrace like actually start like embrace some of these like principles of freedom. I sent her a letter too saying that you should post an item to like offer financial relief to small businesses and like service industry workers who got affected by COVID. And you should propose like some kind of a law or a bill or an item to be discussed on the council to actually help these people. That would go a really long way.
Yeah.
And it would help you get support from a whole group of people that are not just on the Republican side of the aisle. It would be Republicans, Democrats. Everybody supports that. Everybody wants to help small businesses. Never did it. I was telling Mackenzie, I'm like, hey, you got to think about like you got to come on and be a pro Bitcoin candidate or pro Bitcoin official who is willing to help this industry grow in a way that protects people's privacy and like supports freedom in the digital age and supports sound money and self-custody of your own finances. You could have like, you're friends with the mayor of Miami. You have that guy on speed dial. You could have like hit that guy up and gone on Pomp's Best Business Show at the time. And you could have. There's a lot of stuff that you could have done as a sitting city council member to really like increase the popularity of your message and to build that message up to other people. It just was an opportunity that I don't think she used, and she could have used it in a way that was not going to be divisive, that was not going to make her into a Marjorie Greene-like figure. It could have just been a way that she just got her voice more amplified and got more support in this next election. It seems like she kind of just didn't utilize that opportunity, but everything's a learning experience. You see what's happening and you just take notes and try to apply it for the next thing, right? But
and 1 out of 10, that's a very tough role for her to be in.
Well, it means that you get to enjoy the cocktail party for 2 more years.
I guess so.
It just means you get to enjoy the cocktail party. You're the one Republican.
You get a free office in the Death Star. It's great, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a crush ice machine up there in the mayor's
and you got a 40% pay raise.
I would say that's a pretty good consolation prize. Yeah.
She's doing great. It's the easiest job in the world for her. She gets paid 130 G. She's getting paid a 6-figure salary to really kind of just be a lame duck.
Well, I don't think she'll be a lame duck at all, but
I hope
she
not,
could be.
But
she could be. She can be a PO. She can be a PO quite easily, but she's not. So we're glad about that. And we hope to recruit and going into 2024. And message heard loud and clear. We need a better messaging organ. We need to find a better way to reach the masses and reach the younger people. But saying earlier, who's moving here, Alex? And I think a lot of folks don't really have the good intentions of Austin in mind. They're here for the gravy train. They're here for the economic boom that's here. And they're moving from California. They're moving from New York. They're moving from every state.
Do you think people moved here? Florida went super red.
Yeah.
And people from blue states moved to escape lockdowns. Texas went pretty red.
Oh, yeah. Our Californians are by and large Republicans. That's the mystery sauce here. Like, what are they doing? But is there enough of them? And one thing that never gets said, we talk about how many people are moving to Austin every day. But do you ever hear about how many people are leaving Austin every day? Quite a bit. Now, there's probably more coming in than are leaving, but who's leaving, I wonder? A lot of our good conservatives are leaving. So the people coming in, I don't think they're thinking about their neighbors. I don't think they're thinking about, what the homeless people are going to do to them. And if their house gets torched by a homeless Antifa activist, they're probably like, well, I deserve it. I'm a white guy, We heard that during BLM, by the way. There was a business that was torched. I believe it was in Portland, and it was a historic business owned by our family for generations. And she says, well, I guess we have it coming. And it's sad that kind of mentality that happens, but the liberal mindset is way different than what you and I are talking about. It's a very collective mentality, like we deserve to deal with this, or we need to see the homeless because they need to be visible. That's what they're saying. These problems need to be brought to our attention, so they don't vote against.
Oh, they're brought to their attention, but then when people try to find out ways to solve the problems, they don't want to solve it.
Right, because they're thinking collectively. So we'll handle it on a widespread basis.
It's because there's money. It's because there's money in homelessness.
That's
and
right.
the more of this you see, the more funding people get, the more you tax people, the more big governments and big organizations make money, and then they use these rhetorical talking points to justify it.
Oh yeah, like a climate refugee funds. The Biden administration is about to spend X millions of dollars moving Indian tribes because of climate change. It's just it's more of that collectivist thinking that doesn't value individualism or personal liberty or that leave us alone mentality we mentioned that's so foundational to who we are as Americans. So how do we fight that, or how do we rope them back into our philosophy?
You need a messaging. You need a messaging platform that appeals to younger people like me who are on the internet. And I think the people that you appeal to are going to be like Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
Bitcoiners and entrepreneurs are the people that you want to appeal to. Bitcoiners, musicians, entrepreneurs, and creative content creators are the people that you want to start to build a message around supporting, because those people are good with computers, those people are good at messaging, and those people will share your message to a large audience. I also think that we need to focus on legislation to make it really, really easy and super accommodating for social media companies that are censorship-free, decentralized social media companies to come in and thrive in Texas. So for every Facebook that creates algorithms to moderate your speech, there should be a Float, or there should be a Rumble, there should be something like that. Like, why are we not offering massive tax breaks to a company like Float to expand their workforce to create a thriving company here? Why are we not doing that for Rumble? Why aren't we doing that for BitChute or something like that? Like, why aren't we creating legislation to invite smaller, free speech centered social media companies to come to Texas and thrive here?
That's another bigger issue. It's one over incentivizing or penalizing. I think the current regime prefers to penalize. Like right now, you talk to the average Republican in the Senate or the Congress, and they'll say, well, we need to rein back social media. We need to regulate Facebook's ability to censor conservatives.
You
and I'm
can't
like, well, no,
do that.
because that enlarges the amount of time that Facebook will be in power, because you'll basically baby them, and then their competitors like a Float, like Speakeasy, like some others, they're not going to get the traction they need. They need Facebook to fail before they can succeed. But when government doesn't let them fail, just like we saw with the GM bailout, we just get a worse product. And so we need to get away from the penalization. Like you said, incentivize small business to compete.
Yeah, and you could also just not offer a like don't these tax breaks and like incentives have to be renewed on a consistent basis?
I think so, yeah.
So you could just refuse to renew. You could also just say, hey, we're happy to renew this thing, but you have to provide an equal opportunity for all ideas to flourish in your marketplace of ideas.
That's right. Well, taking a local example, the Domain, for instance, their tax break expired after 10 years, right? And now it's a voluntary thing. They just said, okay, I guess it's working out. I don't think so. I think it's hurt the Arboretum and Arbor Walk in some area shopping centers. But the city of Austin had the power to voluntarily extend that tax abatement. The government has the power of God when it comes to tax abatements right now.
Yeah.
And maybe it shouldn't.
So there's a lot of
while
that.
It exists, there's a lot that can be done for the small business. There can be a kind of an equalization there where, okay, for every $1 million we give a large company over X amount of employees, we can give X amount to small businesses. Maybe have a lottery to make up for that. Maybe every time we give a company like Intel or Samsung a tax abatement for their school district taxes, we can find some formula that would give a lottery for small businesses to take advantage of. But there's a lot of things we can do to incentivize small businesses.
Well, we should prioritize what we want. What we want is freedom, all right?
Amen.
And so you prioritize companies that are going to support those values, that you see the potential for them to grow at a large scale, and you want to do whatever you can to help those principles grow and flourish in Texas. If they don't grow or flourish here, eventually Texas goes blue, and they will not offer you the same courtesy that you're offering them.
Hear, hear.
And that's it. All right, Andy.
Oh,
how do we get a hold of you? Because our producer's wrapping up. We'll do some bonus stuff, though, afterwards, because there's more to talk about.
Look at me at Andy Hogue on Twitter, and I do support Twitter 100% now. Andy Hogue Twitter, Facebook, at Andy Hogue. I'm easy to reach, or just Google me. Find me at headquarters. Give me a call.
All right. Hey, Andy. Thank you so much
Great
for coming on.
here. Yes.
Andy Hogue, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Great time.
All right.
Oh. Is that the bonus material?
Yeah, right.